Welcome, dear dreamers, to a tale as cold and enchanting as the winter stars. Tonight, we journey to the land of the ice river, where echoes of ancient secrets drift through the frozen air. Close your eyes and imagine a world blanketed in snow, where whispers of legends past linger in the silence, guarded by a giant with twilight-colored eyes. Let the stillness settle around you like a blanket of fresh snow as we follow the story of the healer, the warrior, and the child. This is a story of courage, of sacrifice, and of the silent strength that lies within us all. Drift with me into this quiet place and let each word lull you gently to sleep. They say there is a place where the night air trembles, haunted by the echoes of ages past. Few know the true path, and fewer still believe it exists at all. Yet the legend of the ice river lingers in hushed tones, told by old men at firesides and woven into the lullabies of sleepless children. In the deepest part of the forgotten land, beyond the last whispers of civilization, lies a river that defies the laws of the earth. This river does not rage or ripple. It does not murmur over stones or froth over the bones of the mountains. No, this river is held in a state of otherworldly calm, its surface a mirror of frosted silver, trapped in a moment of eternal winter. Those who claim to have glimpsed it describe the ice river as a sleeping spirit, alive with a pale ghostly light that shivers just beneath the ice. It's a light not seen with the eyes but felt, a distant melancholic glow that pulls at the heart. For the ice river, they say, is a place of healing, a rare gift in a world ravaged by time and pain. Its water can cure wounds that do not close, sicknesses that cannot be named, and sorrows hidden too deeply for words. But the river does not yield its gift to just anyone. No mere traveler can walk to its edge, dip their hands, and drink. The water is guarded, as it has been since the first snows settled on the mountaintops and the first stars appeared in the night. The guardian, known simply as the giant, is as ancient as the ice river itself, and some say he was born from it. His form is like that of a man, but greater, built from the bones of mountains, with a face that holds the chill of the unyielding north. His eyes, they say, are the color of twilight in winter, a place between light and shadow. No one knows the giant's true name, for none have dared to ask. The giant's duty is clear. He watches over the ice river with a silent, patient vigilance, allowing none but the pure-hearted to approach. The tales say he can see into the souls of those who come to his river. He measures their desires and weighs their hearts, searching for a spark of selflessness. For only those who seek the river's water, not for themselves but for others, are worthy of its gift. The elders claim that those who come with selfish motives find the river colder than stone, a frozen mockery of what they desire. while those with pure intentions feel warmth within the ice, a gentle thrum of life. No one knows why the giant holds such power or what binds him to his task. Some believe he was a soul who once knew great suffering, punished or chosen, perhaps both, to ensure others did not suffer as he did. Others say he is a spirit, a manifestation of the river itself, bound to protect its purity from the corruption of greed and pride. And so, the legend lives on, carried in whispers across the empty fields and hollow forests. People tell of villages once saved by the river's water, of wounds miraculously healed and hearts made whole. But such tales are few, for those who seek the river must do so with courage and humility, facing not only the giant, but also the secrets hidden within their own hearts. It is said that, to reach the river, one must walk through a thick silence, through a world where time seems to slow, and the boundaries between the living and the dead grow thin. In the dead of winter, when snow falls heavy and sound is swallowed by the night, some still try. They make their way through the frost-covered forest, guided only by the faintest flicker of light. For the ice river is a promise, a rumor, a hope. And in a world as cold and bitter as the wind over the mountains, hope is enough to brave the impossible. And in that distant frozen land, the giant waits, unmoving, his vigil unbroken as the snow falls around him in silence. He waits, listening for the footsteps of those who might yet prove worthy of his river's gift. The night is dense with snow, a hush, falling over the land as if the world itself holds its breath. In the deep folds of the forest, 3 figures move through the white veil, shadows against the ancient trees. They travel in silence, as if words would break the fragile balance between life and the endless snow. The healer, the warrior, and the child. 3 seekers bound by need, by sorrow, and by hope. The healer, wrapped in a cloak that has seen too many winters, leads the way. Her hands, weathered and stained by the herbs she gathers, tremble slightly as she pulls her cloak tighter around her. Her village lies far behind, gripped by an illness that devours even the strong, leaving children weak and pale. Her heart aches with each step, for she has already seen too many graves filled this season. Her spirit is weighed by the memories of those she could not save, and yet she pushes forward, her eyes fixed on the unseen promise of the ice river. Behind her walks the warrior, his gait steady, yet shadowed by a sorrow of his own. Once he was a man of renown, his name known in halls where fires roared and songs echoed through stone chambers. But the songs have faded, and the halls lie far behind him now. His hand rests on the hilt of a sword he no longer draws, though the scar on his side has healed in the flesh. It burns like frost in his soul. He carries not only his wound, but the burden of all he has lost, a weight that drags at his spirit like chains of ice. He has heard whispers that the water of the ice river can heal what no hand can touch. And so he has followed, though doubt clings to him like the cold. At the end of their small procession is the child, a quiet figure with eyes that reflect the snow's pale light. She walks without complaint, though her small feet sink into drifts that reach her knees. She carries no pack, no weapon, and no words. Her face is hidden beneath a tattered hood, and her gaze is fixed forward, unwavering. The child's silence is not that of fear, but of something else. A resignation, perhaps, or a calm that lies beyond her years. The others know little of her, only that she appeared one night at the edge of the village, her eyes wide with something unspeakable. She has no family, no home, only the faintest smile and a gentle presence, like the memory of sunlight in a forgotten place. As they walk, the night deepens, and the forest presses close. The trees are dark monoliths, their branches twisted and bare, etched against the starlit sky. Occasionally, a wind stirs the branches, sending flurries of snow drifting like whispers around them. But the travelers feel no chill. The anticipation of what lies ahead fills them with a strange warmth, an unspoken understanding that they are drawing near to something vast and unseen. The healer stops, her breath clouding in the air as her hand rises, motioning for silence. Ahead, through the latticework of snow and shadow, there is a glimmer. It is faint, like the first star in the evening sky, but unmistakable. The ice river is close. They stand for a moment, hearts quickening in their chests. There, in the hush of the forest, a presence lingers. Something ancient, a hum beneath the snow, as though the earth itself is breathing. They can feel it in their bones, in the space between heartbeats. They are not alone. The healer glances at the warrior, her eyes searching his, and he nods, his hand tightening around the hilt of his sword. The child, however, steps forward without hesitation, her gaze fixed on the faint light. As they continue, the trees thin, and the ground grows hard beneath their feet. The faint glimmer grows stronger, casting a pale glow over the snow-laden world, illuminating the crystalline edge of the river they have come so far to find. The ice river stretches before them, its surface a vast shimmering expanse that seems both frozen and fluid, a mirror capturing the cold beauty of the night. The light beneath the ice pulses softly, as though it has a heartbeat of its own. The travelers step closer, their breath catching. The healer falls to her knees, her eyes wide with wonder. The warrior stands tall, his gaze fixed on the river with a fierce, almost desperate resolve. And the child, standing at the river's edge, remains silent, her face softening as she looks into the depths of the ice, as if seeing something beyond the reach of sight. But even as they stare, a shadow begins to rise from the other side of the river. It moves slowly, growing larger with each heartbeat, until it takes the shape of something immense. The ground trembles and a low rumbling sound fills the air like distant thunder. The shadow solidifies, and the travelers see him at last. The giant, guardian of the ice river. His figure outlined against the sky like a mountain wreathed in mist. He towers above them, draped in the furs of ancient beasts, his face shrouded in frost and shadow. His eyes, two dark embers, stare down at them with a depth that is both solemn and eternal. For a moment, the world seems to hold its breath as the giant's gaze sweeps over them, measuring, considering. His voice, when he speaks, is a low, resonant murmur, like the shifting of glaciers. "Why," he asks, "do you seek the water of the ice river?" The travelers shiver beneath his gaze, each feeling the weight of his question, the intensity of his judgment. And one by one, they prepare to answer, knowing that the fate of their journey, perhaps even of their lives, hangs upon what they will say. The giant's question lingers in the cold air, heavy as snow. The healer, the warrior, and the child feel the weight of his gaze upon them, searching their faces, their hearts. In that still moment, it is as though the forest itself is watching, silent witnesses to their words and hidden intentions. The healer steps forward first. Her voice is soft yet steady, like the murmur of a brook in spring. She lowers her hood, her face etched with lines carved by countless winters and sleepless nights. But her eyes carry a fire that even age has not dimmed. "I come to beg for the lives of my people," she says, her voice breaking. "They are struck by a sickness that drains them, leaves them as shadows. The children lie still as stones, the elders fade, their breaths thin as mist. I have tried everything, roots, herbs, prayers. Nothing stops the sickness." She lowers her gaze, her fingers curling into a worn cloak. "But I have heard of the river, and I believe its water can save them. I beg you to let me take it for them." The giant watches her, his face unreadable, but his eyes flicker, the faintest shift in the dark embers of his gaze. Slowly, he extends one hand, vast and weathered as stone, and from his palm he draws forth a shard of ice. It catches the light from the river, gleaming like a star fallen to earth. He places it carefully in her hand, and his voice rumbles with an ancient, distant echo. "Hold it close to your heart," he tells her. "If you seek the water for others and not for yourself, the ice will grow warm. But if your heart is clouded with selfish desire, it will remain as cold as the river itself." The healer closes her fingers around the shard, pressing it to her chest. She waits, feeling its chill seep through her layers, piercing the fabric and settling over her heart like frost. She closes her eyes, thinking of her people, of the children's pale faces, and the way the elders' voices have fallen silent, like songs forgotten. She lets her heart fill with their pain, their need, pushing her own fears and weaknesses aside. And as she does, a warmth begins to bloom within the ice. It is a faint heat, fragile as a spring dawn, but unmistakable. She opens her eyes, and in the dim glow of the river's light, she sees the ice begin to glow, soft and steady. The giant nods, the shadows around his face softening, and takes the shard from her hand. "You may pass," he says. His voice is gentle as the shifting snow. The healer steps back, her heart steady, a quiet relief flooding her veins. Next, the warrior steps forward, his broad frame casting a long shadow over the river's edge. His face is hard, a mask of stone, but there is something haunted in his eyes, a depth of pain that the others cannot see. "I come for a wound that festers still," he says, his voice rough with unshed grief. "Once I fought to protect others, but I failed. I let my comrades fall, my brothers in arms, and now I live with their voices in my head, their faces etched into my dreams. I would give anything to be free of it, to find peace." The giant considers him, his gaze darkening. Then, as he did for the healer, he places a shard of ice in the warrior's hand. "Hold it to your heart," he commands, his tone unyielding. "If your heart seeks peace not for itself but for others, the ice will grow warm." The warrior clenches the ice, his knuckles white with the force of his grip. He presses it to his chest, his heart thudding beneath it. He thinks of his fallen brothers, of the promise he had made to protect them, a promise he had broken. But within him lies a gnawing need, a selfish desire to escape his guilt, to rid himself of the nightmares that claw at him. He knows this even as he tries to deny it, and in that knowing, the ice in his hand remains cold, unyielding as death. The warrior's shoulders slump, shame tightening around him like a shroud. He releases the ice, his eyes downcast. "I understand," he murmurs, stepping back into the shadows. The giant nods, the faintest glint of sorrow in his gaze. Finally, the child steps forward, her small form barely reaching the giant's knee. She does not speak, her face hidden beneath her hood, but her gaze is unflinching, steady. She reaches out her hand, and the giant, with a gentleness belying his immense size, places the last shard of ice in her palm. She closes her fingers around it, pressing it to her heart without hesitation. There is no fear, no doubt in her gaze, only a silent strength. She thinks of no words, no desires, only a quiet acceptance, a compassion beyond her years. And in her hand, the ice begins to glow almost immediately, its light radiating like a small sun, warm and pure. The giant gazes down at her, and in his face, there is something almost like wonder. He nods slowly, his voice a deep, resonant murmur that carries through the night. "You are worthy," he says, and for a moment, his eyes soften. "You may take from the river." The child looks up at him, her face calm, and as she steps forward, She feels the eyes of her companions on her, their hopes and sorrows woven together like a fragile thread. She kneels at the river's edge, her small hands cupped, and dips them into the water, the cold biting yet soothing against her skin. She holds the shimmering liquid, the river's silent gift, ready to share its warmth with those who need it most. The child kneels by the river, her small hands cradling the luminous water, a soft light spilling between her fingers. The healer and the warrior watch, held in a breathless reverence, as though they have stumbled upon a hidden world where secrets older than time itself lie waiting. Above them, the giant stands still as a mountain, his gaze fixed on the child, a glimmer of understanding in his twilight-colored eyes. For a moment, there is only silence, a deep, unbroken quiet that wraps around them like the softest snowfall. Then, the giant speaks, his voice a murmur that seems to rise not from his mouth, but from the very earth. A voice that remembers all that has come before and knows all that is yet to be. Few who come here know why they truly seek this water, he begins, his words slow, deliberate. They carry burdens they do not understand, dreams twisted by fear and loss. They believe that to heal themselves they must erase their pain, but the river is not a cure for suffering. It is a mirror. It shows you what lies hidden within. The warrior shifts uneasily, his gaze dropping to the frozen ground. The healer's hands tremble, though she tries to hide it, a shadow of doubt flickering across her face. But the child remains still, her eyes reflecting the giant's gaze, as though she already understands. The giant reaches out, his hand hovering over the river's surface. The water glows brighter, and beneath its frozen shell, shapes and shadows flicker like memories caught in ice. The travelers see flashes, a village lost in snowfall, the faces of loved ones, hands reaching out only to fade away. It is as if the river holds their past, each memory preserved within its depths, frozen and waiting to be seen. The healer steps closer, her eyes widening as she gazes into the water. She sees her village, her people gathered around fires that flicker and die. The children's faces pale and weary, the elders' eyes dull with resignation. A wave of sorrow washes over her, as cold and sharp as the winter wind. She reaches out, her hand hovering above the water's surface, but does not touch it. The giant's voice, low and steady, holds her back. Your heart carries their pain, healer, but you must understand. The river cannot erase it. The water will heal the body, but the heart must carry its own weight. The healer withdraws her hand, a quiet resolve settling within her. She nods, her eyes filled with a bittersweet acceptance. I understand, she whispers. The water will save them, but the rest, that is my burden to bear. The giant's gaze turns to the warrior, who stands rigid, his face a mask of shadow and doubt. For a moment, the warrior meets the giant's eyes, and in that gaze, he sees something ancient, something that holds his own pain with a silent understanding. "You seek peace," the giant says, his voice softened with a strange, unspoken sympathy. "But peace does not come from forgetting. It comes from remembrance, from accepting the weight of those who have gone before you. Only when you carry their memory, not as a burden, but as a part of yourself, will you find what you seek." The warrior's face crumples, a storm of grief flashing across his features. Yet he nods, his heart heavy with the knowledge that there is no simple release from the scars he bears. He steps back, his gaze lowered, but his spirit softened, as though some part of him has finally understood the nature of his own wounds. Finally, the giant turns to the child, his face softening as he looks down at her, his shadow falling over her like a shroud. She meets his gaze with a steady calm, her small frame unmoving, as though she has always known what she would find here. "You carry a great sorrow, child," he murmurs, his voice barely above a whisper, yet filled with the gravity that holds the weight of 100 winters. "Yet your heart has not closed itself to the world. You understand that to heal others is to carry a part of their suffering, and in doing so, you become both healer and wounded. This is the path you have chosen." The child nods, her gaze unwavering, and in her eyes, the giant sees a reflection of himself, a quiet acceptance of the burdens that come with compassion, a strength that does not break but bends to hold others. He reaches out one great hand, and she places her own tiny hand within it, feeling the warmth of his ancient strength, the solidity of a duty fulfilled over countless lifetimes. The giant looks down at her, his voice barely a whisper. "You of all who come, understand what lies beyond this river. Take the water, go and share it with those in need. But know this, to heal is not to escape pain, but to walk with it, to let it live within you as a part of who you are." The child smiles softly, a faint, fragile light in the darkness. She rises carrying the water in her hands, its glow illuminating her face as she turns away from the river's edge. The giant watches them as they leave, his gaze lingering on the child, a faint sorrow shadowing his face. He knows, as all guardians must, that he will watch many come and go, each carrying a piece of his own burden, a shard of his own soul. And though he remains bound to the river, an eternal sentinel, he feels a glimmer of peace in knowing that the water will carry healing to those who truly need it. As they disappear into the night, the giant turns back to the river, his vigil unbroken, his heart bound to the ice and the silence. He watches as the glow fades, the water settling once more into its quiet, frozen depths, waiting for those who would seek it with selfless hearts. The child carries the water of the ice river in her hands, a delicate glow shimmering between her fingers, casting soft light over the snow-covered path. The healer and the warrior walk beside her, each cloaked in a silence that feels almost sacred, their thoughts drifting like the snowflakes that fall around them. The path home is long, but the weight of their journey has lifted, transformed by the strange understanding they now carry, a truth given to them by the giant's solemn gaze and the river's silent depths. The healer glances at the child, her heart swelling with a quiet gratitude. She does not speak, for words seem hollow here, a pale shadow of what she feels. Instead, she places a gentle hand on the child's shoulder, feeling the warmth of the river's water radiate even through the cold night air. She remembers the faces of her villagers, the thin breaths and fevered eyes, the desperate hope that clings to them. And she knows that the river's gift, carried in the hands of this small, silent child, is their salvation. The warrior walks beside them, his gaze distant, lost in the depths of his own mind. He, too, has been changed, though his path to healing has been one of acceptance rather than relief. The giant's words echo within him, an ache that is both painful and freeing, as though a wound long forgotten has been opened and tended to. He thinks of his fallen comrades, their faces blurred by time, and finds that he no longer fears their memory. They are not his torment, but his strength, woven into his spirit as a part of who he is. As they leave the forest, the sky begins to lighten, a pale glow spreading across the horizon. Dawn creeps over the snow-covered hills, painting the world in soft shades of blue and grey, casting a faint light over their path. The river's water glows faintly in the child's hands, its light blending with the dawn, a reminder of the strange, almost otherworldly journey they have taken. When they reach the village, they find it silent. The house is covered in a thin layer of frost, smoke curling weakly from a few chimneys. The healer hurries forward, her heart pounding as she steps through the familiar streets, the faces of her people filling her mind. She enters the healer's hut, where the sick and wounded lie, their breaths shallow, their eyes dim with fever. The child follows her, stepping softly, her hands cupped around the water as if carrying a precious flame. She moves among the sick, her small form almost lost among the bundles of blankets and the quiet forms of the ailing villagers. With a gentle calm, she holds the water to each one, letting a single drop fall upon their lips, watching as the light of the ice river sinks into their skin, a warmth that spreads through their bodies. The healer watches, her heart swelling as she sees colour return to their faces. As the fever lifts and their eyes open, soft and clear, one by one the villagers awaken, their breaths deepening, their strength returning. The sickness that had held them in its cold grasp fades, replaced by a peace that seems to flow from within, as if the water of the ice river has not only healed their bodies, but also touched their spirits. Outside, the villagers gather, drawn by whispers of what has come to pass. They watch in awe as the healer emerges from the hut, her face transformed by a quiet joy, a peace that seems to shine from within. Behind her walks the child, her hands empty now, the last drops of the river's water fading from her skin, leaving only a faint warmth, a memory of the giant's gift. The warrior stands among the villagers, his gaze soft, his posture no longer tense but open, as though the weight he has carried for so long has been lifted, if only just enough to let him breathe freely. He meets the healer's eyes, a silent understanding passing between them, a bond forged in the silence of the frozen forest and the quiet depths of the river. As the dawn brightens, the villagers gather around the healer and the child, their voices low, reverent. They do not question the miracle, for in their hearts they know that some mysteries are beyond the reach of words. They simply give thanks, their voices rising softly, blending with the wind, carried to the distant mountains and the unseen places where ancient beings keep silent watch. The child, her task completed, stands quietly at the edge of the crowd, her face serene. She does not speak, but in her eyes there is a wisdom, an understanding beyond her years. The river's water has left its mark upon her, a gift that cannot be seen but felt, a quiet strength that glows like a hidden ember. She knows that her path is one of healing, of carrying the burdens of others, and she accepts it with a grace that is both childlike and timeless. As the village rejoices, the healer turns her gaze toward the distant forest, her thoughts drifting back to the giant, standing alone at the river's edge, his figure etched against the pale light of the winter sky. She feels a pang of sorrow for him, bound to his vigil, alone in his silent watch. But she knows that his duty is one he has chosen, a burden he carries with pride and with love, for he guards not only the river, but the spirit of all who come to it. And so, as the sun rises over the village, the memory of the ice river fades into the light of day, its gift carried forward by those who have been touched by its waters. The travelers return to their lives, changed, each carrying a piece of the giant's strength within them. A quiet reminder that healing is not the absence of pain, but the courage to walk with it, to let it shape and guide them. And far away, hidden in the depths of the frozen forest, the giant stands at his post, his gaze fixed upon the river's surface, his heart bound to its icy depths. He is the silent guardian, the keeper of the ice river's mysteries, watching and waiting as he has always done for those who may come with selfless hearts, seeking the quiet grace of healing.